turn on the recording. It's going to be a recorded class, so it's going to involve some reflection, some share. But of course, if you're not comfortable to share something on recording, that's all good as well. And we're going to start our class. So hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Iryna Aronov. I'm a therapist, and I work a lot with, well, recently I've been really passionate about working with women and empowering women and helping them realize what's really holding them back in their self-love, in their ability to be creative, and just feeling good, just like really feeling good in your body, or in your mind and in your emotions. And that's the journey that I really walked myself, is that 10 years back, 11 years back, when I just started this journey, I was my inner critic, and I'm going to talk about what it is, but it was so strong that I wasn't able to create anything, to make decisions, to be confident, because inner critic is just, it's really gets in the way. So I really believe that this information that I'm going to present to you, that you came here and you're going to spend an hour of your time learning this, my hope is you're going to really benefit from it, because I really do believe it's life changing. So it's really, really important information, and I hope you benefit. My goal is to make it worth your time. Your time is very valuable. So let's dive in. And so who is this inner critic who's gets in your way? Can you see the presentation? Everybody see that? Does anybody have trouble seeing this?
I can see.
Yeah, good.
Yep, good.
So this inner critic, oh, I'm gonna present. Basically, I don't know if you hear this as thoughts or you have feelings, but there is a part of us that criticizes ourselves. So absolutely everybody has one. It's and that's our first point of reflection, to let's just take a moment. Well, first, just arrive here in our space, in the space in this class, and just take a moment and really reflect on how does this inner critic show up in my life. So just think about it. So I'll give you a couple examples. For example, this part, this inner critic, can show up as thoughts, like in this example. It says like, well, it's the only matter of time before they figure out you're a fraud. So it's kind of like that part that says, well, you're just not good enough. It's never, you a failure. So it can say various things depending on severity of criticism. It can say pretty hurtful things. It can say undermining thing, but it's basically, it's not that empowering voice. It's usually something, it says something negative about yourself, about you. So just take a moment. So for example, for me, when I first started to learn about inner critic, I wouldn't even hear the thoughts. Sometimes it would just come in as like a drop in my belly, like something, just like, oh, something doesn't feel good. I just want to, like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to, like, I don't want to go to this party, or some, like, I don't want to go to work because I just feel like I'm just not really good at what I do. And it was more somatic feeling. So I'm curious for you, um, if you can just type me, or journal, how does this first show up for you? What would be an example? See if you can see the chat also. Or you can also unmute the mic and share if you prefer. Somebody else just doing.
I know for me, I would get very very physical, like nausea, feeling of just like, oh, I'm sick or something, and I'm just not gonna do it and blame it on not feeling good all of a sudden.
Yeah, right. So exactly, that's like that part that says, oh, I'm just not feeling like doing it.
Yeah,
I need rest. I need some self-care. But a lot of times it's just the part that says you're gonna fail, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Or you're gonna like make a fool out of yourself, or it's
Yeah.
something bad will happen, or someone will say something bad. I don't know. Like you kind of think of the worst that can happen.
Yes. Yes. So this part says something bad will happen. You're gonna fail. You're gonna make a fool out of yourself. What else? What are some other things your inner critic says?
It it's safe to just kind of be where you are.
Yeah, don't take the risk, right?
Yeah, don't take, yeah, exactly.
It's too scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, my inner critic is super strong, both at work and in personal relationships. At work is it's always that, I don't know, maybe it's a part of being an immigrant too. But it's always, oh, I'm not good enough. All of the other people are smarter than me or can do a better job, even though I've been with the same firm for 7 or 8 years now, and everybody praises my work product, but it's still, I'm just waiting constantly for the other shoe to drop. And
Yeah.
then in personal relationship, I find myself thinking, when everybody tells me, oh, you're so great and you're so this and this and this and that, I keep thinking, oh my God, wait until you know me better. Wait
Mm.
until like what's going on in my head, and then you're gonna change your mind.
Yeah, you're gonna really know how horrible I am. Well,
Right.
this part does believe that you and also it undermines your value, right? So do you actually hear the thoughts or it's like a feeling? What is it?
I think it's both. I think over time I learn to recognize it in a thought and put it in it's almost physical. The thought becomes physical. And but I think it starts with somebody else mentioned a nauseous feeling in your stomach, or tightness in
Mhm.
the chest, or some fear symptoms.
Yes, yes. I used to have this feeling where I just want to hide, almost like unable to show up, but just like retreating. So I would have this like, oh, I just want to hide in my room under the blankets kind of feeling. It would be really hard to put myself forward, right, with this feeling because it's very strong. And another area this inner critic shows up is creativity because it's like terrified that you're gonna create something and somebody's gonna say something mean about it or it's not gonna be good. And so just better not to create anything. It just says, well, what's the point to create something? It's just not gonna be good. So let's just not even try. And so people stay blocked in this kind of conundrum, right? In this area where they're not able to move forward in the creative process, in their dreams. Like they want to create the dream career or the dream business, but they just can't because this inner critic is like, well, no chance. So a lot of suffering, right? A lot of suffering is created. So let's look. So my next slide is about how it's created, and it's created in childhood. So for those of you who are new to psychological world, but it's basically all of this starts in childhood when you're a little beautiful, perfect child, and your parents either externally or meaning they would tell you something or just sometimes it's passed down with just like a sense. So sometimes it's even unconscious, and they would just translate this belief that you're just not good enough. um I don't know if you experienced that in your life, but for me it was it wasn't that, like, say my parents criticized me. Like, they never said like, oh, Iryna, you're not good enough. Like, it was almost unspoken, like, because my mom had, so that's how it's all often transmuted. Like, if you think about your mom, so that's another experiential we can do right now. You just think about your mom. How is your mom fully expressed this creative being, you know, empowered in her life, or is she not? Probably for those of us who are from Soviet Union, from all these countries, our mother was overworked, undervalued, underappreciated. She didn't have time to express herself. So of course, because we're kids, we look at our mom and we absorb, like, kind of absorb that model. We download, if you will, or we absorb her beliefs, her relationship with herself, so that we become like her in a lot of ways. Or we can also rebel and swing to the opposite. But a lot of times we still absorb that inner criticism. So if your mom was critical to herself, chances are you're also going to be critical. So I don't know if, you know, you could type it in the chat or share, like, if that resonates, that your mom was also self-critical and she wasn't fully expressed. I know my mom wasn't, like, she was so tired from surviving, so and just not really valuing herself and her life. So a lot of us kind of absorb that in ourselves.
Yes, I personally completely agree. This is so resonates with me. My mom, even though all her life she was, you know, successful in her career, but the life and still self-doubt and just that, you know, undervaluing herself was constantly present, and it's present till this day. And it's again, I also don't remember them telling me that you know, you're not good enough, or it was otherwise. They were pushing me, and sort of I was the favorite child in the family. But you know, I assumed that I got it from my mom, who was you know, completely unsure of herself, very, you know, boxed in, and
Yes, and thank you for this, because you bring up very important point that we're trying to do with our kids. But you know how the saying goes, monkeys do as I say, not as I do. Like, we tell our kids, you're so awesome, but inside we don't feel that about ourselves. And kids, they don't believe us. They don't if we don't model that, we don't model, especially, you know, for girls, like, if we don't model that we are actually proud and so self-loving and connected to ourselves, they're not going to believe they're awesome. Could they believe that? So a lot of times your help to your children really starts with you helping yourself, because if you model very healthy confidence and self-esteem to your kids, they're going to absorb that. Even if you're going to tell them be confident, but you're not modeling that, it's not going to land. It's going to create confusion, because they think like, oh, mom tells me to be confident, but she's not confident, so how can I be confident? But she tells me that. So it just creates confusion for the child. So for a lot of us, that was the case. So you can see, why is it so important to work with your inner critic? Well, because, like we mentioned, kills your creativity. It's a source of shame. It's a source of low self-esteem. And also it contributes to depression. So most people I worked with depression quite a bit somehow, because I've been through depression. I also kind of tracked clients who go through this, and I would say 100% of them have, so, like, the inner critic is so strong that makes them miserable. And when they are depressed, when they're at their lowest and they actually need support, the inner critic comes really strongly and say, you're weak for being depressed. I can't believe you're feeling so bad. You shouldn't feel so bad. You should get out of your feelings and stop, and be strong. So creates a lot of problems, and it kills the confidence. Just kills the confidence very quickly. And it just feels bad. It feels bad in your body. Like we said, it's like constricted, and it's just, yeah, not a good feeling. Okay, so we talked about the problem, right? Let's talk about some of the solutions that people are doing with the inner critic. And if you, like, that would be probably a good reflection point if you stop and think, okay, well, what do I do when this inner critic comes up? Like, what do I do if I don't want to, I just want to hide and I feel so critical of myself and I don't feel confident? How do you guys deal with this? So you can either mute yourself or type in comments. Well, I used to first ignore my inner critic, like just avoid it, watch Netflix. I don't know if you guys watch Netflix. That's like my number one avoidance strategy. Like, oh, I don't want to feel this. That feels bad. So I'm just gonna hide and watch Netflix under the covers. It kind of feels cozy, right? I mean, that's okay. Like, we all need time to watch Netflix. And if we're just not dealing with the problem, we're not gonna get anywhere. We're not gonna get anywhere in life if we just watch Netflix. So it's good coping mechanism for some time, but not for a long time. So people like ignore, so I put some going in the list. You can see how people are dealing with this, and some are just completely unaware. Some just like say, well, I don't have any critic. Like, what are you talking about? I don't really have that. But actually they're just not aware. Or they ignore, they try to silence inner critic, they try to shut it out, resist it. Some people like really fight their inner critic, so they hear this voice like, you ugly. Some inner critics, actually for women, inner critic likes to focus on like the appearance, right, physical looks, and so it'd say like, oh, you're ugly, you're fat, and all this, and the person will say like, no, I'm not, like, stop saying that. So sort of like battling your inner critic, that voice inside. That's it can work for a little bit, but eventually it doesn't go away, because it's a part of us. It's externalized from our parents, but it is a part of us that's there, and it's actually, as I'm going to mention, it has a job to do. It actually has a role in the psyche. So let's see. I don't see. Let me see if I can open the chat. Oh, okay. So Maria said, my mom is never like that. She has no doubt that she's not good enough, but all others are. Okay, so it's interesting. So mom is not like that, but maybe others in the family are, right? Or who are all others that are? Sometimes a mom can be, it can be healthy, like a healthy self-esteem. Sometimes it's can be to the other side, but hopefully your mom sounds like your mom modeled actually good healthy self-esteem, so you're lucky with that. That can happen. So since I have you, how do you deal with your inner critic? What's your strategy?
For me personally, I feel like it's totally like running me. It's it won. It won. Like I kind of gave up.
Oh yeah, that's another one. We just resigned. That's
yeah. It's yeah. I kind of like said, all right, like you win. Like it's exhausting. Like it's so exhausting. Because for me, it comes in like waves. One day I'm so motivated and I'm like, okay, I got this. I'm going to do this. I have like this clear path and vision. And the next day is just like so heavy and exhausting. Like, okay, I'm not doing anything, So it's just riding these waves to the point of like, okay, I'm physically exhausted from it. You win. And it leads to like kind of like shut down or not feeling anything, being numb, or, you know, just like, okay, what's the point?
Yes, that's another one where we just give up. We say, okay, you too loud, too big, you win, I'm a failure, I'm gonna go watch Netflix.
Yeah, like I don't know how to deal with you, I don't know how to get past you. Okay, like that's it.
It's like the abuse, you know, some abuser now had that's like, you're a failure, you're a failure, you're a failure.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, fine, I'm a failure. Okay, you win, go.
Right.
Yeah, okay. That resonates.
Renata, it resonates with me as well. That you know, ups and downs, ups and downs. One day I'm great and I'm so productive and I feel good, and then the other day is completely, you know, nothing is happening, and I'm like, what is wrong with me?
Yeah.
That's so funny. It's not funny, but it's just funny that somebody else just said it, and it's just so obvious.
Well, I like, for me, I personally like find my, you know, think I'm like, I have a strong personality. Like I've been through so much. We all have, coming from Soviet Union, like making it all the way here, right?
Yes.
And then kind of learning, living here, all this work, all this like spiritual path. So you're like, oh, I'm supposed to be like that, or like this exists, right? So it starts to kind of come up and rise to the surface, but yet you still have all these feelings and limiting beliefs and whatever else you were conditioned with, you know. So it's this kind of battle.
Yeah, and inner critic can be very spiritual. Inner critic it sneaks up in various ways. Like it sneaks up and says, well, you're not spiritual enough, you're not doing work enough. In therapy, it sometimes sneaks up and says, oh, you're not a good client, you're not doing good work in therapy. So it's very sneaky. We have to watch out, otherwise it's just attaching to everything, you know, to our work. Okay, so let's talk about actual what role. So let's reframe, because when we start noticing this inner critic, it feels kind of abusive, and it feels like, you know, it feels like wrong. We don't like that. It's like, go away. Why are you here? You're blocking me. You are in the way of me experiencing life fully. And what I would like to offer you as a reframe is that it actually has a role in the psyche, and every part of us is there for a reason, and it's our whole being is trying to do what's best for ourselves, you know. So every part of us is actually serving us in a way. So even this part that's like, you bad, you bad, you bad, you bad, you're a failure, it's actually in a twisted way is trying to serve us. And this is a quote that I really like about this, but it's, the critic remembers all too well the pain of our childhood, their innumerable times when we were shamed and criticized and made fun of. It desperately wants us to avoid that primal pain, and the only way it can handle it is to make us perfect.
But it kind of, okay, I'm confused because
it
creates suffering.
Yeah,
hence pain, right? Versus like if you feel like sort of healed and happy and, you know, sort of fulfilled, wouldn't that be better?
Yes, but the inner critic, so think about how it develops. Like a little child doesn't have an inner critic, so it's completely open, completely creative, completely free, right? And then it draws a picture and it shows to your mom, the picture that you created. It's like your creative process, and your mom was like, yeah. And she's busy. Maybe she's not even noticing it. And the child is crushed. That pain for that inner child, for that child, is actually, it's like, oh my God, like I created something and it hurts to show it. So I'm gonna put a protection in place where this part of me now is gonna say, I'm not a good artist. It's easier for child to believe that I'm not a good artist than to give that responsibility for mom's reaction. So the child puts this protection. Okay, it's not safe to create. It's not safe to express myself. It's gonna hurt, and it does.
Mm.
And so
That's so funny that you mentioned even this scenario. This is Natalia, by the way, speaking. I was 8 and I was focused on a drawing of a person. And my mom comes from work and she tells me, you should have done this like a chore instead of this. So and I am fighting for so many years with myself, like I'm doing something and I should have been doing this instead of this. How do you kill that critic in you?
Well, that's the whole point of this. So we're not gonna kill it. We're gonna make friends with it. Because the more we resist it, the more we fight with it, it actually gets stronger. So we want to understand it, and we want to like reframe it. We instead of it being an enemy, we want to sit down with it and say, what's happening? Why are you so mean to me? What's going on? Why are you calling me all these bad names? Or why are you not letting me create? Or like your mom, you know, she criticized you, right? She said you should have done this instead of this. And as a child, it was painful because you wanted to create. But now there's a part of you that's like your mom kind of in you. Does it make sense? It's trying to, and it's trying to protect you. It's trying, so the pain from that we experienced from, so I can put it like this. We said, okay, I don't want other people criticizing me, so I'm gonna criticize myself and make myself so perfect. So it's not gonna come from outside, and it feels safer for the child because I'm gonna control this. I'm gonna control this process. Does it make sense? It's child's logic, but it's saved you in a way. Like at 5 years old, it was actually quite useful mechanism, but it's not useful anymore. And another added layer for women, which is my favorite thing in the world to talk about, but we also have this inner patriarch, which is an added layer to inner critic, separate part, but still very painful. It actually believes that, you know, feminine qualities are inferior. So it can come in and criticize you for being too emotional or being too needy or being too, what's another one? Maybe sexuality is one of the things, or maybe not sexual enough, because, you know, like a woman's supposed to be like, what does it say? Like sexual with her husband, but not sexual to others, you know? So like a lot of double kind of catches 22 there. So what else you guys hear your kind of inner patriarch say? Let's see, mine says a lot about like emotions, like, oh, you're too emotional or something, like emotions are not good. And it has a lot of standards about what women should be like, and we are not really honoring our female qualities, really. Oh, I didn't see the chat for some reason. So it's kind of hard to, yeah, we are not taught how to honor and develop this traditional feminine gifts as true sources of power. But they actually are true sources of power. So, yeah, any questions about that? Any reflections on this part? I don't know. Oh, here it is. Oh, Anna had to go. Okay, no problem. Do you guys experience this? The voice that comments on your femininity in any way or wants you to be a certain way as a woman kind of undermines your power? Anybody?
Yeah, I think for me as a wife.
As like, a wife, okay.
Yeah, like, oh, the house should be clean. It's just kind of like,
Yeah.
where the hell does it come from? Like, if I want to do something, I have a 3-year-old, so like very rarely I have time for myself. So I want to just like sit down and maybe, watch something or whatever, do something for myself. But all these thoughts, no, clean the house, make sure that no dishes when the husband comes home, the house needs to look a certain way. It's like, where the hell does it all come from?
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's inner patriarch. That's a internalized
Oh.
patriarchy, because you're supposed to be a good wife,
Yeah.
a good like housemaker and a good mom. So make sure you spend time with your kid. And so by the time all that's done, guess what? You don't have any time to yourself.
For you, yeah.
Yeah. So you can start recognizing that voice where I had this really strongly activating when my kids were born. Before that, it somehow didn't activate, but when they were born. And I remember that I couldn't relax until like I unload dishwasher. And I'm like,
the laundry's done.
Yeah, like what the hell is with the dishwasher? Like, why can't you just what's it's like impulsive almost, it's like like it's just like this greater power comes over you and saves you to the dishwasher. And I'm standing there unloading dishwasher, and it's like, this is not what I want to be doing right now. But then like how much time you spend on your creativity, like expressing your creativity, how much time you spend in your own connection with yourself, with your other parts of you that are not a mom, not a mother, not a wife. There's so many parts of you, right? But this inner patriarch is the one that says, okay, it's not, they're not as valuable. So
you're right. You are not priority. Like
you're not priority. Yeah.
All these other things are priority, and
you actually a servant. That's how it tells you. You in service.
Yeah.
So it's not about you.
Yeah.
Which is not true, of course, but it's good to recognize that voice, start recognizing the voice. And so now this is the process that's actually the process on how to move from self-criticism to self-love. And it has 4 steps identified, and the first is becoming aware of your inner critic. Just noticing the thoughts, or your inner patriarch, the one that says you have to clean the house, and you just notice it, right? Becoming aware. It's always awareness is always the first step. Second is acknowledging that it's good, has good intent. Meaning that it's trying to protect you from pain of your childhood. And when you recognize it, that it's like this, I don't know if you feel it, but when I think about the step, it's like this inner relaxation, like, oh, I don't have to fight with it. It's trying to protect me. So I don't have to feel bad. It's like, oh, okay, it's here. And it's doing something for me. So I'm gonna actually give you an example and walk through this process with this example. But so for example, it's like a live example because I wanted to do this class, right? So I wanted to do this class, wanted to do it for a while, and my inner critic is like, well, nobody's gonna come. Nobody's gonna come to a class. Don't do it. So first I was like, okay, I'm not gonna do it. Nobody's gonna. So that's the first step when you actually believe it, right? You like, the thought comes, nobody's gonna come to a class, don't do it, and you're like, yeah, you're right. Okay, I'm just not gonna do it. You're right, and watch enough. Hiding into my bed. But then maybe there's another part that's like, no, I really want to do it. But I really want to do it. It sounds fun. I wanna like introduce this just to people, get to meet people. Like, it's gonna be fun. And that's the other part. I was like, nobody's gonna come and do it. But now I'm not identifying with it. I can watch it. I can observe this part that says, okay, there's a part of me that says, don't do it. Okay, it's my inner critic. And now I know it's trying to protect me. Okay, it's there. So that's like first 2 steps. Does it make sense? So you can use your own example. And you can actually, you can do it in journaling. Like you can like write the thoughts down. Okay, don't do it. It's too scary. You're gonna fail. Nobody's gonna come. You're gonna make a fool out of yourself. You're gonna announce it on Facebook and nobody's gonna come. It's gonna look stupid and all this stuff, right? And I just write it down, like kind of like, okay, yeah, it's here. It's noticing it. And then that's like the third step is kind of what comes in journaling, where you're starting to separate yourself from your critic's voice. So you're starting to recognize that your inner critic is just a part of you. We have many parts, and it's not the truth. What it says, it's not the ultimate truth. It's just what it says, because it's there. It's its job. Its job to keep you safe, to keep you safe, to keep you protective in your little thing. And it's doing a good job, right? It's often keeps us very small, and we don't take risks. And you know, and we save, but then we don't get to experience other things in life. And the last one is connect and heal your inner child using your inner critic. Hence, using what the inner critic says. Because with how we talked about that, underneath the inner critic is usually pain from childhood. It's usually an experience that was painful, and now inner critic is trying to protect us from this pain. So in my experience, it says, nobody's gonna come, nobody's gonna come. And when I separate myself from it, when I like, okay, there's my inner critic, I'm here, I'm talking to it, like imagine, so in therapy we'll do like parts work where we imagine this inner critic standing, and we sometimes give it like an image. So we imagine like my inner critic, it's like very stern, and maybe she's like, she was wearing like a suit and glasses, and like she's doing this. So we kind of give it the life of its own, so we can externalize it. We have started developing a relationship with her, with this part. Sometimes it's actually a he, sometimes it's a she. So it's kind of fun to watch like what gender your inner critic is. And we just start talking to her like, okay, what's gonna be so bad about me announcing in class and nobody's gonna show up? Well, you're gonna feel you know, it's gonna feel bad. You're gonna put yourself out there, there's nobody gonna come and everybody's gonna see you. And so it's shame. So it's shame, and it's trying to protect me from shame. But when I say it's okay, you know what, if I'm ready to feel it. So if I'm gonna announce this class and nobody's gonna come, it's probably not gonna feel good. And I'm willing to feel those feelings. I'm willing to take the risk and feel those feelings. And I actually do that. So I imagine that nobody, like I imagined nobody came to class. I'm here sitting by myself. And it's like, you know what, the memory that came to me was a birthday party. Like a birthday party where my friends couldn't make it. So that's the connection for me with some like a childhood experience, that I'm sitting here, I put like all my best cakes, and like, and some people made it, but there was like very important people who didn't make to my birthday party. And I put my best effort, like I bought the best cake, the best dishes, and I'm just sitting there, like wanting them to come. And they just, you know, they were busy. And I'm sitting there with this feeling of like, I'm not important enough and they didn't come. And that's the feeling that my inner critic was trying to protect me from. Because it feels like I'm alone. It feels like nobody cares. It feels that what I do is not important. And those are painful feelings. But when I'm willing to feel that, it's like inner critic relaxes, because it's okay. I felt those feelings, they're not pleasant, but you know what? I survived. And in my scenario, nobody came to the class, and it's okay. It's not, I mean, it's not okay, it's painful, but I still I still moved through with my life. So does it make sense? Do you guys have, does it make sense about the child healing? I mean, the inner child healing is like a big process in itself, but how it connects, how can you use your inner critic to start doing this work, like even on your own? Can you actually take this information and apply it to your life, where you can start doing this? What can you do? What like resonates, what doesn't? Questions,
Well,
comments?
question, is it important to kind of say like, okay, I get it, like I'm imagining this worst case scenario and I'm accepting it? It's almost like you're going in parallel with your inner critic. Like, why wouldn't you imagine the best case scenario, like, oh, everybody came and it was amazing, kind of like
Because
love to have?
because there's fear, because there's fear of worst case scenario. Fear is already there.
Mm-hmm.
So until you deal with the fear, the inner critic, it's going to be hard to move past. You're going to have so much energy to like move past the inner critic, because the inner critic is very active, right? So that's where the exhaustion comes in, when we try to like say, okay, I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear what you're trying to say. I like, no, it's not going to happen. It's not, because you know what? It could happen. Like, I'm more about the reality, about like, you know what? It, like the worst case scenario also could be happen. When I'm okay with worst case scenario, I'm ready to embrace the best case scenario. So it's not that it's not that I'm like visualizing it. It's more that I do this process once, I felt my feelings, and now, like before this class, I visualized of like, oh, that many people came and it went great. So, but I do it after going through the worst case scenario, you know, to kind of neutralize any pain points.
Right. So yeah, it sounds like it's important to acknowledge it and
Exactly, acknowledge it, give it space, heal it, give your inner child who felt those feelings like a hug, you know, like nurturing a child, and then inner critic usually quiets down after that.
Yeah. I also get the disconnect, because a lot of times we see the power of visualization, and you know, if you visualize these positive things and positive outcomes, and this is going to happen. You know, there are so many books and so many articles on that topic, but I also agree, because we are conditioned, you know, everybody grew up differently. So that comes, the inner critic comes from childhood, and what you end up doing, if you don't do the work with the inner critic first, then it's the fight happens. And this is my understanding, is that this is what we're trying to avoid. There, you know, there should be no fight. We have, you know, sort of relax the inner critic first, and then you can turn to accept the worst case scenario, and then sort of, you know, it's the best case scenario comes easier.
Yeah, we need to take care of our inner critic. So our inner critic has needs, just like any other parts. And when we like say just go away, you know, we're not giving it attention, when actually if we take care of, if we parent our inner critic, like just be like a good mom to our inner critic, it relaxes, so we don't have to fight him or her, usually her. So it's just, yeah, it's less like tension in the psyche, because a lot of times we do this affirmations, like this affirmations, but they don't go in, they stay here on a conscious level, but our behavior is actually mostly, you know, influenced by unconscious processes. So the pain is unconscious. Pain is what drives us, but we're trying to say, I'm powerful, I'm this, but it's not connecting. Like, we don't believe it on a deeper level. So it doesn't really work. So we need to do the work with the pain. And through the pain, actually, once I do this process, like worst case scenario, feeling my feelings, then I feel compassionate to my inner child. That's the deeper level of self-love. That's like we're all here for, right? Then I feel love to my inner critic. That's like inside, it feels very loving. It's not, there's no tension. I love my inner child. I love my inner critic. It's all love. And it feels really good. And then say with creativity, right? Like I was blocked in singing for a long time, and singing is actually something that really gives me joy. And the inner critic says like, it's not good, don't sing, it doesn't sound good. It's actually, my sister told me that, like when I was little and tried to sing, my sister's like, stop it, you know. It was really painful because I was singing from my heart. So it's hard. And now when I try to sing and this part says like, oh, don't say this, I'm like, you know what, yes, it was painful. It was painful when somebody told me that it's not good. And then I feel the pain, and then it's like I can sing. But it's not like the process that you do just once. It's sort of like, it's a practice. So I'm offering you a practice that you can take into your own life. And even if you just do one thing, like you just journal thoughts from your inner critic, I think it's going to give you a relief, because you're going to stop identifying with it. You're going to realize that you are not your inner critic. You're so much more than this. You are bigger than inner critic. Inner critic is just this one part. That makes sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've noticed what critic is saying. So that's always the first step. Saying, okay, yeah, I hear you, my inner critic, but you're not me. Let's see what you're trying to protect me from. Does anybody have like an example? We can go through an example. Let's see what time this is. So it's 10 minutes. Okay, so we're pretty good on time. That's my presentation. So now there's just, time for questions or reflections or shares. What resonated, what didn't, what are you taking away? So let's see. Okay, so let's start the presentation. Yeah.
So, okay, so you kind of, accept it or take care of it and it feels lighter. How do you go to kind of feeling more free though? Like something that is this deep freedom versus this kind of light surface, relief feeling.
So the deep freedom. So when your inner child, so if you think of like freedom and the creativity, the spark, the curiosity, it's usually feelings that we say, like in psychology, it's associated with inner child, meaning that part of us that's just free, right? Yeah. And so the work to have that is have a good relationship with that part of you. It comes with working with the pain. So the more you work with the pain of that inner child, connecting with the inner child, healing the inner child, the more free it becomes. And it's very deep. It's not even this process when you feel the pain, it goes very deep, the pain. And through the pain, we heal the inner child, and it's happy and it's ready to create and be like, I'm just gonna do whatever because I'm so free. The inner critic is often what's aware of that, but it's for the reason of protection.
So is the goal to kind of make it feel like, okay, I acknowledge you and I will be safe, or more of like, I know you're there? Like kind of like, what is the ultimate goal?
The ultimate goal is to go through all the steps. Just knowing that it's there, it's gonna give some relief, but it's not gonna lead to transformation.
Right.
So it's the first, like when you not identified, it's like, oh, okay, it's not me. But ultimately, when I go through the steps of like talking to it and really getting to what's the bottom of the concern of the inner critic, and then hearing it, addressing the concern, meeting their needs, integrating this part, and then it sort of becomes, you know, then it's deeper transformation. So it's, you know, it's a lot of work, but we here in therapy love it. And if you're willing to explore that deeper, you can always talk to me. We can, so that's one of the things, like we can do a process for your inner critic. And yeah, if you're not comfortable to do it with a group, you can reach out to me separately for this.
I have an example.
Okay, let's go.
Inner critic. I'm not a networker, so it's so hard for me to just go out and talk, you know, make small talk with other people, unknown people. So for a long time, I limited myself with that. And I'm like, I'm just not gonna go because nobody's gonna talk to me. I'm just gonna be standing there alone. I have nothing to say. No, you know, there's no
that's
value.
Inner critic, so that's inner critic.
Yeah,
that's
so
not you.
No,
it's inner critic.
No value to what I have to say. And so I started noticing, just lately, even I do a little cycling, and I know that I'm not as strong as other people, and I'm like, I hate to go out. I'm gonna fall behind, and nobody's gonna wait for me, and I'm just gonna be all alone. I'm gonna be so lonely.
Yeah.
And so I recognize that it's speaking. And I want some, you know, friends who I know to come with me, but they can't at all times. So I still, you know, I guess the process, the second step would be to recognize that it's there to protect me.
Yeah.
It's there to give me comfort and keep me in a comfort zone. But then if I separate and just, you know, accept the fact that yes, you may be riding alone and by yourself, and there's going to be nobody to talk to you, but you're going to be okay. You know,
well, no, so you're skipping a step because there's fear of being alone there. And so what it's trying to protect you is from this feeling that you're going to be there and you're not going to connect to anyone and you're going to feel lonely.
Right.
And so that's the inner child piece that you can connect to the child in you that feels lonely and say, well, I'm going to be here. I'm adult Iryna that's going to be there with you. And kind of be in those feelings of loneliness, because that's intense. Yeah. And when you and when you're okay with that, then you can go and be okay if they're not connecting to you, because you're connected to yourself. So the inner critic can then just if it says something, you can say, yeah, I know, I'll be okay. Okay, so let's wrap up. So I hope this was, so I'm gonna leave the recording in the group so you can get back to these 4 steps. Just comment if you have any questions. So for those people who are not in the group, I just have I'm gonna type the name of the group in the comments so you can add yourself. And I'm sorry I don't get to see other people, but I hope this was helpful, and just let me know any feedback, questions. You can always DM me. I'm pretty active on Facebook, so okay, so awesome. So I'm glad you enjoyed that. That was interesting. Okay, thank you everyone.
Thank you so much.
And I'll see you on the internet.
Bye-bye.
Bye.